are pretty as you. Girl, I can't stand it. Let's move this upstairs. Let me take these two hands, running through your hair. All these things I wanna do are running through my head. Leave your dress in the hall, rip the sheets off the bed. I seen a California sunset, I seen the hills of Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen the Georgia evergreens, I seen a blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs. But none of those things are pretty as you. No, they ain't, baby. I seen a California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen Georgia evergreens, I seen a blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs. But none of those things are pretty as you. Girl, none of those things are pretty as you know. Baby, let your hair down and let's stay on the couch. Put your head on my chest and don't make a sound. We can turn off the phone, forget about the world, 'cause there ain't one damn thing in it that compares to you, girl. I seen a California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen the Georgia evergreens, I seen a blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs. But none of those things are pretty as you. Girl, I can't stand it. Let's move this upstairs. Let me take these two hands, running through your hair. All these things I wanna do are running through my head. Leave your dress in the hall, rip the sheets off the bed. I seen a California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen the Georgia evergreens, I seen a blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs. But none of those things are pretty as you. No, they ain't, baby. I seen a California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen Georgia evergreens, I seen a blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs. But none of those things are pretty as you. Girl, none of those things are pretty as you know. Baby, let your hair down and let's stay on the couch. Put your head on my chest and don't make a sound. We can turn off the phone, forget about the world, 'cause there ain't one damn thing in it that compares to you, girl. I seen the California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen the Georgia Everglades, I seen the blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs, but none of those things are pretty as you. Girl, I can't stand it. Let's move this upstairs. Let me take these two hands, running through your hair. All these things I wanna do are running through my head. Leave your dress in the hall, rip the sheets off the bed. I seen the California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen the Georgia Everglades, I seen the blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs, but none of those things are pretty as you. No, they ain't, baby. I seen the California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen the Georgia Everglades, I seen the blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs, but none of those things are pretty as you. Girl, none of those things are pretty as you, no. Baby, let your hair down and let's stay on the couch. Put your head on my chest and don't make a sound. We can turn off the phone, forget about the world, 'cause there ain't one damn thing in it that compares to you, girl. I seen the California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen the Georgia Everglades, I seen the blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs, but none of those things are pretty as you. Girl, I can't stand it. Let's move this upstairs. Let me take these two hands, running through your hair. All these things I wanna do are running through my head. Leave your dress in the hall, rip the sheets off the bed. I seen the California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee, I seen the beaches down in Florida, I seen the Georgia Everglades, I seen the blue sky in Kentucky, I seen Colorado Springs, but none of those things are pretty as you. No, they ain't, baby. I seen the California sunset, I seen the hills in Tennessee. Fred.
What's up, pickers and grinners? Welcome to the FretJob. The FretJob is a live video podcast where we dig into the bones of the guitar world and we talk about pretty much anything with strings or anything that makes music, including amplifiers. The FretJob is broadcasted live from Frazzell Guitars, located at 816 Stanford Road in Danville, Kentucky, Kentucky's premier guitar store, full-service luthier shop, amp repair shop. And now I'm going to hand it over to my friend and co-host, Mr. Brandon Edwards, the professional luthier and owner of Frazzell Guitars.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Frazzell Guitars. My name is Brandon Edwards. I'm the professional luthier, and I am the connoisseur/owner here at Frazzell Guitars. Let me introduce you to my co-host, Jonathan Recorder. He is Kentucky's best real estate agent. On top of that, he is the best person to ever pick up a guitar, ukulele, or anything with strings for that point. And I am proud to call him one of my closest friends. Jonathan Recorder, everybody.
Glad to be here. Today is episode 23 of the FretJob, and we have a special guest today, and his name is Justin Vanderpool. We call him the Amp Doctor. He is the amp repairman and amp extraordinaire here at Frazzell Guitars. And Brandon, I'm going to let you kind of tell us a little bit about how you met Justin, and we'll let him introduce himself.
It's there's no gals here. There may be gals. Richard.
What's up, man?
What's up? So let me introduce you to my great friend, Justin Vanderpool. So we talked about him here a little bit before. You've seen him on Facebook, and this is the amp doctor at Frazzell Guitars. This is the man with these slick fingers who works on your amplifier. Is it just incredible of all the stuff that he does when he can just look at something and within a minute of just seeing it, yep, it needs this transistor, it needs this. I can done tell you this. And
absolutely.
And
So, Justin, tell us a little bit about how you got into repairing amps and kind of what you do, man.
Well, I guess I've always been a fan of electronics. I could remember, being probably 12 or 13, got one of them little project kits from Radio Shack, just delving around with that and learned a lot about electronics with that and was hooked. So ever since then, from about 13 on to about 15, I go around here tinkering around with stuff, finding stuff, fixing it up. And then, of course, when I turned 16, the high school offered a vocational program for students that taught electronics, which actually counted too as close towards college credit as well. So I'm like, yeah, why not? I'm going to learn about electronics. And I did that for 2 years. And then after I graduated from high school, went for about another 2 years through, it was called Central Votech at the time. It's now Lexington Community and Technical College.
Yeah.
And specialized too when I went there in robotics and communications. Anyway, I always just dealt with the stuff. I never really got a good full-fledged electronics job until probably 20 years later when I got kind of dragged into the medical field kicking and screaming.
Yeah,
and, Anyway, the guy that ran the repair shop there at this medical place that I worked at wound up quitting, and they just took me back there one day and said, here you go. I guess word got back about the electronics and computer knowledge that I had.
They said, it's yours.
yeah, just basically.
Yeah.
I did biomedical for at least probably 10, 15 years. And then I got out of that and got into industrial electronics. But I've always been I've been a practicing musician probably since I was 7 or 8 years old. So combination of being a musician and then being into electronics, you kind of had no choice. I mean, it just kind of pulled you straight down the amps and that kind of stuff. And growing up dirt poor, yeah. I mean, if you didn't have the money to go and have it done, you either had to learn how to do it yourself or do without. It was
yeah, and people, like we were talking earlier before we came on air, people get into this dumpster diving stuff and pull stuff out of the dumpster. And I'd say some of the amp repairs you've done over the years have been similar to that. Like, man, this thing's heading for the graveyard, and then you bring it back to life.
Yeah, give it a new lease on life. And it's so bad, too, because a lot of electronics places now, they won't hardly put out parts. There's been a big court case going on right now. It's been a big class action suit on what's called right to repair, with a bunch of other stuff, because a lot of people won't let you repair their stuff, or they won't sell you parts to repair your stuff.
They want you to send it back to them.
Or they either want you to send it back to them
or
throw it away. And that was the bad problem, too, with, I did TV repair and stuff for a while, and, it was cheaper back then to just toss the TV out and buy another one than it was to have somebody come in and diagnose it and repair it. Unfortunately, guitar amps, you have a guitar amp, you're partial to that guitar amp, you've played with that amp most of your life or most of your career, and you want it back on its feet.
Yeah. So you may not even be able to replace it with the same model. Even if they make the same model, it's probably not going to be the same to you. You know?
It's like food magic. It's like mom's meatloaf or grandma's meatloaf.
You
could follow that recipe down to the letter, and it still won't be as good as hers. It's just
yeah, for sure. And here's something I'll mention. This is the same with guitar repair. You don't know till you get into something sometimes what's gonna bring with it. Sometimes you get into something and it's just a dirty mess.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like Willie Nelson's guitar Trigger. He called it Trigger, that classical guitar. And there was a guy that was actually on YouTube that he was the person that actually took care of that guitar for him. And just looking at that guitar and the way it sits, I don't even see how it still plays.
Well, the folks at StewMac take care of it, so Dan Irwine's brother takes care of it. So that's probably part of the reason why it still plays.
And, Willie, it's crazy, man. He's one of these players that, he's just got this weird timing thing he does, and that guitar just suits him so well, man.
It's funny. I've actually got an old album of Willie Nelson's, but this was before he went wherever in that direction he's going. Him dressed up in a suit and short hair and everything doesn't even look like the same fella. I'm like, who's this?
Yeah.
So, we'll talk about amp repair and amp stuff here and repair in general. So, you get things in, you don't know. And, it can be frustrating. As a repair side, you'll get things in, and from the outside, everything looks okay. And everything looks, but once you dive into it...
It's usually that way with amps. Almost every time they look fine.
Oh, yeah. Well, with amps, it's hit and miss. You may get one that may take you 15 or 20 minets to sort out. You may get one that may take you 5 hours to 5 days to sort out.
Yeah.
We'll go a little story time here before we dive into the different stuff. Tell them about the story about that Marshall.
Oh gosh, we had a Marshall come in, and
it was a DSL.
Yeah, it was a DSL. It's a very nice amp, and at first we thought, well, it just it was just a bad fuse, and everything seemed to be all right. And it wasn't but about a week or so later, the guy had brought it back in. And in this case, however, the fuse was good, but I guess something else had went in it. And it took, we dug and checked and tested, and, I'd never found the like of cold solder joints that was on this thing. We'd replaced a rectifier in it. And it needed tubes anyway. You could see that the tubes was burnt. But finally, I guess the bad part of what happened was there was a variable resistor in there that wasn't soldered in good, which wasn't allowing the circuit to complete. It's called a VR circuit or VCC circuit, which allows your tubes to fire up. And apparently that was. But it was just one of those little minuscule things that if you don't know what to look for, or if you don't, that finally just presented itself to us. And Marshall's really great now with their tubes amps. They've really, really wised up with a lot of things. A lot of tube amps you would have to go and use all these electrical formulas, and would have to have 2 ammeters to bias tubes. And then you'd have to figure out what kind of a resistor to put in there in that bias circuit to even those tubes out. Now with Marshall, it's great. You don't even have to figure a resistor. You can hook an ammeter onto each end, turn that little knob there and stuff, and balance it out, and you're done. So it's
cool. So tubes, I'm sure a lot of people don't really understand amps completely, but is tube amps, is that still where it's at? Is that still the best of the best?
Well, tube amps, again, it's a matter of preference. A lot of people like that warm vintage tube type tone that a tube amp puts out. There's a lot of good solid state systems out there. Line 6 makes a really, really good solid state. They did have one that was called a spider valve. Which, of course,
I saw those before.
Yeah, which, of course, that's what British call the tubes a valve. You know, we call them
Okay.
tubes here in the state. Yeah, British call them a valve. So you hear a Marshall valve state, you know, that's a
That means tube.
well, valve state, it means tube and solid state. They call it a valve state. It's got
Oh,
it's got a
okay.
tube for a preamp, and then the rest of it's solid state. So you can
Okay.
still get that nice warm vintage tube type sound for a lot less money. And then of course Peavey came out with what was called trans tube, which was the
Okay.
same type of principle. You had a tube preamp. But
And-
it's all a matter of preference and
Yeah.
taste. A lot of the good a lot of your good vintage rock and rollers, Hendrix, of course Angus Young, all them just like that good tube, just that Marshall.
Well, most
Type
of the
sound.
famous amps out there, they're tube amps.
Well,
You-
they had to have been. I mean, there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of solid state
Yeah.
back in.
So
Yeah.
here's something I want to bring up. So like, here's a good example of some stuff. Like we had this old dude bring this amp, and like people look like when you're buying an amp, look at the screws. Make sure nobody's been inside of it. Like if you can obviously tell someone's been inside of it, that can be a recipe for disaster. Somebody.
Yeah.
Well, just with anything used and stuff, I've always kept a big secret, and this goes with cars, with houses, or with anything used. The number one rule with that is don't fall in love. I mean, look at this thing like everything in the world's
Yeah.
wrong with
Yeah.
it and stuff. I mean, I've seen people they'll fall in love with a house, and I mean,
Yeah.
granted, the place looks beautiful.
Buy it
on
with your
the
mind,
inside.
not your eyes.
Yeah, with your
Yeah.
Don't fall in love. Yeah,
This old
take a
guy
look.
bought an amp, and literally he said, "Well, I had it. It worked for about 4 or 5 days, and it quit going." And he brought it in, and first look at it, you could obviously tell that somebody had been in it before. Somebody had been jacking around with it because it wasn't set up right. It was missing stuff. It was missing things on the inside. You could obviously tell.
Well, even that Marshall that guy brought in that we had so much trouble with, a lot of guys that there was a lot of modifications and
Yeah,
stuff on it.
there
So-
was. But this guy here he's brung us 3 amps, or technically 2, but he's brung us 2 amps that are just like, somebody's been inside of it, and somebody's tried to do their own fix, and they've ended up doing more damage than they have good.
Yeah.
And then it ended to be that portion of the thing. And it's like, I know everybody, but even in somebody like him that has knowledge on amplifiers and that knows, you should look at it and say, okay, hey, somebody's been inside of these. This screw's missing. It's got stuff missing. Somebody's taking this thing apart.
It's been apart before.
Do I want to buy it like that? Because you buy
Well-
it like that, you're taking a risk regardless.
Well, I mean, but on a tube amp for the most part and everything too. I mean, especially as old as some of these are and everything, you could definitely make a good book that it's probably been apart before once or twice. But you can look at it and tell whoever took it apart knows what they were doing and who don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Now-
tell if it was the customer that had it apart, or if they had it somewhere and
Right,
had
if they had
somebody.
it serviced.
Yeah, and like here's the thing, even sometimes this amp was having a problem. It was a what was it? It was a bass amp, custom.
Yeah, custom
and
bass amp, yeah.
and somebody had replaced something in it before, and they said, and Justin's like, well, yeah, some shop replaced this, but they didn't do this. They didn't have thermal paste here, and they didn't
Well,
do
they
this.
didn't. With a lot of transistors, a lot of people don't realize too. You can't just go in and slap a transistor in and solder it in. You have to have the heat sink part of it taken care of first. And what this
Okay.
guy did with this Marshall or with that custom amp was he had soldered a new power chip in it, but he soldered it in there without putting it on the heat sink first. So it got hot when it soldered. When he soldered,
And
the
he
first
put no
one in.
thermal paste either on it, so therefore it was just a chip to a heat sink, and it was kind of like,
Yeah, it got hot, and of course it gets hot and it malfunctions. It's like with PA heads and stuff too. A lot of them may have about 4 or 5 output transistors in them, and everybody, we'll just replace that one. And I'm just like, if you don't replace them all while I've got them in here, eventually they're going to start going in a chain because that new one that you put in here is stronger than all the others.
Yeah,
eventually
it's going
they're
to find the weak spot.
Yeah, it's going to
Yeah.
find a weak spot and keep going
and
off.
Here's the question of the episode, and we're gonna ask this: what is your all-time favorite amp that you ever had? Now, what's your all-time favorite amp that you've ever? What's your just favorite amp of all time? You may not have owned it, but what's your amp when you think of amp?
Believe it or not, and it's more of a sentimental value and stuff, and I have had this amp probably, since I was about 7 years old, and I remember my grandfather finding it for me, and it was a little 62 Ampeg Gemini 1, and I've
Okay.
still got it, and I've still got it to this day.
What about you, John? What's your when you think what's your favorite amp? That I know you know some about it can be an acoustic amp.
I mean, for me, I mean, I'm an Acoustasonic guy. I like Fender Acoustasonic amps, but I'd like to try this new LR Bag Synapse. It's it's a personal PA system, but it's like awesome for acoustics. I'd like to try one of them.
I've heard good things about those.
Have you?
Yeah, I've actually too got an acoustic. It's an acoustic brand, but it's made for acoustic guitars. But it also has mic inputs as well, so it's like a small amp and a PA.
Yeah,
on one
it's like
Yeah,
having a little
so-
PA. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, my all-time favorite amp is a Fender Twin Deluxe Reverb.
Yes,
Yeah.
those are really nice.
I've always wanted one.
They've reissued them at least a couple of times, but if you can find an original one, you're
Yeah,
sitting
that's-
on a gold mine there. If you can find an original one,
Or
Yeah.
a Marshall half stack, either one. But
I almost mentioned there's two electric amps I'll mention that when I think about electric amps, I think about these amps. One of them is my whole childhood growing up. There was a guy at our church that had a Fender Bassman there.
oh yeah,
And that was an awesome amp. And then I have owned a couple of electric guitar amps. The last electric guitar amp that I owned was a Benz
oh yeah, I've heard of those.
El Diablo 60. That's what it was called. It was
you
like
want
a
to,
3060.
you want to read Colby's comment, John?
Yeah, we can.
Or or do
Let me
you
see.
want to? Can you see it, Justin? You want to read it?
I can't exactly see
I
from here. I don't
think
have my
I can
glasses
see
on.
it. I got it. All right, Colby. Yes, twin reverb rocks. Oh, he says Crate Excalibur half stack is my favorite for nostalgia.
Oh yeah,
But his
great.
favorite right now is a Marshall Mini Full Stack.
Yes, those
Oh,
are
yes,
incredible.
Those are incredible as well. Now
It-
I've got a Marshall half stack myself. I love it. I've got a DSL 100 head with it, and then I've also got
Yeah.
a JVM head.
I love
with it.
that Black Star. That's probably right up there. It's all tube, man. My first tube amp there, and I love that little Black Star. I mean, I think it's pretty incredible. And yes, the reverbs rock. I'll tell you what. One of my second favorite amps, I had a Trace Elliott Super Twin, and it was a solid state, but that
Yeah.
thing was really rocking.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that thing. You know,
Well, what was really funny too, when Ampeg, you're talking about vintage amps and stuff. When Ampeg first hit the scene, they hit the scene along
What
with
did,
Epiphone.
Richard-
They hit the long.
what did Richard say on there?
I'll read it after
Yeah.
Justin gets done.
But what was really funny when amps first really started coming out, the big competition at the one time was who could make the clearest sounding amp.
Yeah.
It wasn't all about distortion and stuff until like later on, when a lot of amps, it was kind of stumbled on, with the distortion hitting. But there are a lot of people they couldn't afford mods or what they would do. They would even resort to like taking and cutting slits in their speakers and stuff
Yeah.
to try to get them to distort. But what was really funny, the first full online production amp came out in 1931.
Wow.
And it was originally intended for pedal steel players. There
Yeah.
wasn't anything. And the parent company of the people that made this very first amp was, believe it or not, the parent company of what is now Rickenbacker.
Okay, cool.
It was national, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was the first full-on production amp. And then Gibson had a really, really nice, had a good steel guitar player with him. And he couldn't play out publicly with that amp. So what they wound up doing with this amp, they took it to a guy up there in Illinois. And he actually redesigned a different circuit and stuff for that amp, which later became, too, one of Gibson's first amps.
Yeah.
He'd come out, and this gentleman would play through that with it. So
Honestly, I'd want the vintage Gibson amp as well. Either
Yeah.
one of those are solid choices. Like, what did Mr. Richard Poole say?
Yeah, I'll go to Richard Poole's comment. And I remember him having this Roland. He had a Roland. It's a 50 watt. I think it's called a V3 or a VG maybe. But it was an emulating amp. It was kind of like the Line 6 technology. He had it
Spiders.
would emulate like. Yeah, it was made by Roland.
Yeah.
But it would it emulated like 210, but it was just a little tiny 50 watt single speaker amp. But man, that thing, you can make it sound like anything you wanted to. It's
It's
a lot like
amazing.
the Line 6.
Oh, it's amazing how far a lot of the technology has come up. One of my personal favorite practice amps right now, I've got a little Spark 40 that's made by Positive Grid. And I mean, I love the thing. It's got an external out on it, so you can plug it into a speaker, but you can set your tablet up with it and find backing tracks and it'll actually analyze, the software will actually analyze the song and show you the chords for it. And
man, that just opens up so many opportunities for you to learn.
And hey, April, how are you, April?
Hey, April.
But yeah, man, amps is something I don't have a ton of experience with, but I've always, and you said a minute ago, they used to want to make them as clear as possible. In the acoustic world, they're still trying to do that.
Oh,
and that's what I'm always chasing.
Well, a lot of the problems in the acoustic world is where a lot of your strings are covered with bronze. That's a non-ferrous metal, which means a normal pickup is not going to pick that up.
Yeah.
You have to have somewhat of a microphone. So unfortunately, what happens with that is you're not really going through just a straight magnet like you are on an electric guitar pickup. You're going through a microphone. So when you've got a microphone in there, so it's picking it up. It's going through somewhat of a preamp that's built into your acoustic electric.
It's more like having a PA than having an amp.
And it's actually going through there, so you're getting that kind of like that little technical, slinky kind of like, electronic kind of sound with it. So a lot of that is actually in the system. A lot of, I know Taylor, they've really innovated a lot of things with their acoustic electrics. They've got a type of pickup or a type of electric system in there now that actually has a really nice natural sound to it.
Body sensors in there.
Yeah, that instead of just that kind of technical or techno kind of electronic.
Now, I'm into the microphone sound with an acoustic. I mean, I like gooseneck condenser mics and stuff because you can get more of the natural sound than you can out of like a piezo pickup.
Sure. Exactly. I used to love watching like performances like back in the late 70s and early 80s where you had a guy there, he had his microphone, and then there was just a normal microphone down there. It is acoustic. And a lot of that just sounded really, really good. It didn't really have all that technical
get some
sound.
Of the
It
room.
had more of a... Yeah.
You get the room in there with it, too.
Oh, yeah, I can remember watching old Jim Croce videos and stuff. And
Colby said, I really like a crystal clean amp. Mostly dropped on the pedal board for effects and distortion. Yeah, I mean, I do like a crystal clean amp. I'll tell you an amp that I've really been surprised with was my half stack with my Fender Mustang head. That head actually sounds really, really good. And all the stuff, you can actually plug it into the Fender Fuse, which is no longer supported.
Well, believe it or not, too, Fender, back when they started making amps, that was their whole idea. They wanted to make some of the loudest, most cleanest amps.
Yeah.
And stuff. Where with Marshall, Marshall wanted to make, they were sort of the innovators in louder and more powerful amps. As transformers got better, a lot of your wattage didn't really come from your tubes. A lot of it came from the transformers in it. And Marshall, had made these big, just insanely crazy power transformers.
Yeah.
That would just, and of course that's where they got their name, the Father of Loud, or they called Jim Marshall the Father of Loud, which is really funny too because Jim Marshall wasn't actually a guitar player; he was a drummer.
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's something too. Richard Pulse is back in the day. Ampeg or the Fender Twin was boss.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think for amplifiers, what for me is like different. Like I'll tell you some brands that I've really been like Riviera. I've really been impressed with Riviera. I've also been extremely impressed with. I'm trying to think of. It's a brand you don't see often, but you do see it.
Like Soldano.
Soldano's good. There's another one I see on stage a lot that people use. I'm trying to think of what it's called.
What about like Matchless?
Yeah, VHT's good. You see a lot of VHTs now on stage.
What else?
Bogner? Is that one? Bogner.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of, Bogner.
Well, the great thing with amps, I mean, there's even some of the stuff that they make now. I mean, if you're on a low budget and stuff, I mean, they've got some stuff now that are at a really, really decent price and they've got really, really great sounds to them. But a lot of it, again, it's just with personal preference and what you like and what you want to do. I mean, they even make a lot of these little 40-watt amps now, too, that's got a PA output in them, too, to where you can... you can send them out, but it's just all with. That's the beautiful thing with things nowadays. Used to be guitars were just like outrageous. You know, and now now you can get decent guitars for whatever decent amps.
That's really popular. Colby says orange amps are good. I've had a few in the store. I'll tell you what's they got Black Star. That I think there's a lot of great stuff. Boutique amps, there's some great boutique amp makers. I know we talked about amps in another episode, but we're really taking a deeper dive into what we've talked about before. And like, there's several great boutique amp companies that make some rocking stuff. And another amp that is really, really cool is not. I'm trying to think. It's one of the big amp companies out there. They do an amp making course.
What about like hand wired amps? Like when people talk about
that's boutique, hand wired.
like I've read about Stevie Ray Vaughan's Vibro Verb. And
well, a lot of your good first tube amps, a lot of them were hand wired. They would have. I always called it breadboarding. You had a long board that had just little points on it. There wasn't a printed circuit board or anything back then, so you would go and just hand wire capacitors and resistors and
and I've read stories about like Stevie Ray Vaughan having like a guy that kind of traveled with him, man.
Oh yeah, a lot of people
and he would have him just like tweak his amp and go in and do different, change things in it.
A lot of people have amp guys that travels with them.
We're talking about Mojo Tone.
That's awesome.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else here. Let's talk about Joe Bonamassa and his amp collection.
Oh, yeah, and of course, which totally blows my mind. I mean, I know Joe Bonamassa, believe it or not, I mean, I know he's a Gibson guy, but a lot of the times all I've seen him play a lot of times are Epiphones. A lot of times
he plays them to sell his own, basically.
Yeah.
He's got an Epiphone line, and it's making him money every one he sells.
But and Joe Bonamassa is just basically himself.
Mesa Boogie triple rec. Hey, Richard, I've got a dual rec. I'll sell you if you want to come buy it. Ain't a triple, but it's a dual.
Yeah, that's a nice amp. What do you think about Mesa? I mean,
I like Mesa. Mesa's got a wonderful sound to them. The only trouble that I have with Mesa amp right now is just being able to find tubes for them. I went to the Gibson garage back in May. I had some time off, and I went to go and purchase a ES335, and was talking to one of the guys out there and stuff, because this was about the time that Brandon and me had started, was in the process of getting all this stuff together, and was telling him about a triple rectifier that I had here in the shop and stuff, and he was just like, even them Gibson now, owning Mesa Boogie and being the biggest carrier of Mesa Boogie, even they were saying they were having trouble getting tubes at that time for them. Of course, a lot of tubes anymore too are like built and made in like Ukraine, Russia, and all that. And of course, everybody knows the fiasco that's going on over there. So it's just
now tubes. I've noticed that tubes are pretty precious commodity in certain things, and amps I'm sure is the number one thing that they are. But like for musicians, but another situation where I've seen people out looking for tubes is we used to run a drive-in theater. My mom owned one, and the amplifiers that we had in there that ran the sound, like those little speakers that are on the poles.
Oh yeah.
So we had these cabinets that you opened up. When you open the cabinet, there's just tubes all over the back of this.
Well, yeah, and of course, too, a lot of your drive-ins were in like the 50s and 60s. So I mean, the only type of amplification they did have was to
70-volt systems. What this was,
and then
public broadcast.
don't forget they've also got tubes in the old TVs.
Oh yeah. Well, it was funny. I was driving through Winchester a while back, and the old Skyview drive-in there was for sale, and they had a really, really good price on it. I mean, it was like just everything, the screens, the restaurant equipment, the whole thing, and they wanted like $400,000 for it, which really isn't bad for all that acreage. And I was like, this would be a great thing, for my stepfather and me to go and do. And during the winter, we could put up tents and stuff and have like a big indoor flea market or whatever.
Yeah, we did that for years, man. We ran that thing for years. I had a guy that came there.
I'm sorry.
Ahead.
I had even had some deals going online to where I was going to go and change the projection systems and stuff over to DLP to where I could do 3D movies and get better cut movies. Because unfortunately, too, they still had the old 35 millimeter projectors in there, and it was hard to find drive-in cut movies.
Yeah.
At that time, so
the reason I brought those tubes up is I had a guy come over there one time after we switched over to digital. He came over there and we redid the sound and everything, and he asked what we were going to do with those old amps, and I'm like, I mean, we don't really know what we're going to do with them, but come look at them and see if it's something that'll work for you. And what he does is he rebuilds Hammond B5 organs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
yeah, it's the same
Mr.
type
Yoakum.
of tubes in them.
It's
Yeah,
Yoakum,
and
ain't it?
he's always constantly looking for certain tubes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they use them in those organs, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Those would not work for him. He ended
Yeah.
up not taking them. But
Well, there was some of them. I remember we played in a band. We had a guy that had an old organ, and I mean, this thing you'd have just about looked like you'd have to almost have like a fifth wheel or a trailer or something to haul this thing.
Yeah.
And it had these two speakers that had the horns that spun around in it.
like a Leslie speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Leslie. So, we're talking about Colby Conley says a friend of mine got a positive rear end amp recently called a Spark 40. Came with apps and amp, Bluetooth, and mostly small, really loud. New age stuff.
That's what you were talking about,
Yeah,
right?
I was just talking about one of those, Colby. It's a great amp. I love mine. I actually picked mine up, got a really good price on it, and just really, really enjoyed it. It's just, I mean, it's just even for a beginner and for the price, it's wonderful. I mean, you can practice around on it.
Yeah.
You can learn things on it, or you can even plug it in to a PA and play out on it.
I will spill the beans here because it's looking like I can't 100%, but I'll give a little announcement. We'll take a little small break. I'll make a store announcement. So I am looking at in the store currently to have a wall full of lag guitars here very, very soon.
Oh, are you? Cool.
So that means I'll have their flagship model, which is the High Vibe, which is the most expensive lag they own, which is $2,000 lag. And it comes with built-in reverb, built-in all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
That's a cool guitar, man. It's kind of like that Yamaha
have you
makes
looked at the High Vibe?
one.
The
Yes.
lag? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I know we're talking about amps, but a little quick thing because this is a music gear. What is your thoughts on the High Vibe? Because I've looked at it and playing the lags that I've had here in store. What is kind of your thoughts?
Well, I like the lag guitars. I like the ones that you've had in the store, and I had played them before I even met you. I had played some lags, but that High Vibe, it's like having a guitar that has the Tonewood amp built into it, or it's kind of like that Yamaha guitar that they've got out now. I forgot what it's called, but it's got effects built into it and stuff, and that's something new that the acoustic guitars are starting to show up with this kind of stuff in it.
Can you read Colby's comment there?
Yeah, I was reading Colby's comment. Yeah, the positive grid, too. You can do all kinds with it, too. It's even got a feature on it for bass if you want to plug in a bass and play it. It's also even got a feature, too, for an acoustic if you want to plug in an acoustic and play with it. It's a really, 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 really great amp. Okay, Richard, to answer your question, as far as tubes are concerned, I mean, I think the 6L6G is probably more of the original. But there's some aftermarkets, too, that do really good. A lot of it, too, is just depending on how you feel about things or how much money you're wanting to put into it. It's like restoring a Mustang. You can get a 69 Mustang and do all aftermarket parts for a lot cheaper, or you can go with all original parts for a little more money. It's just personal preference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Colby said something else here. Hold on. Colby, I'm going to answer this. He said, have never heard of lag. Lag is a guitar company, Colby, that it's a French company, and Brandon's actually he's a Lag dealer. You should check them out, man. They make some really nice pieces, man. It's good acoustic guitars.
Yeah, and here's a question for you, Colby. Well, not really a question. I'm surprised you haven't seen me post about it. I posted about them, and I think you've liked a few of it. You probably just didn't realize that was a Lag guitar.
Guys, I'll be right back. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're talking about amplifiers and
Yeah, I played a few of these Lag guitars here myself, and actually too, just really, really nice pieces for the money. I mean,
I mean, they're really nice. They got Fishman Electronics. I have really, 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 really enjoyed like everything that is going on. Like I see Wayne Jesse's on here. Thank you, Wayne, for sharing the stream. Wayne, what is your favorite amplifier? Question of the day, Wayne. What is your favorite amplifier of all time? There's, it's just iconic. Another one. What's that amp that starts with an H? Harkey.
Yeah, Harkey. Yeah, they make a great bass amp.
Yeah, Harkey makes a great half stack. Oh, my favorites. If I had to get any amp possible, a Batcat. I really, really, really bad want a Batcat, but they're too much out of my price range.
Oh,
but those things are rad.
Yeah, even Hughes and Kettner, they're a little outrageous, but they're just a stern, just a
Hughes and Kettner. I've had a Hughes and Kettner, but I like Hughes and Kettner too. But use a
You
Kettner
can't hardly
half stack.
kill one of them. They're just they're
Yeah.
like tanks. You can't hardly kill
Custom
one of them.
too. Custom mate's good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If I had a choice of 3 amplifiers right now that it was given to me, I would want a Bad Cat. Ever since I watched Undertones, I've always wanted a Bad Cat. On top of that, I want one of those customs with the purple, with the purple. It looks like the purple sparkle or whatever. Them custom amps. You know what I'm talking about?
Like the way that they had wrapped them, that had like the purple padding and
Yes.
stuff on them.
I want one of those.
Well, I mean, yeah, for the aesthetic purposes of them, but believe it or not, from what I understood, those were customs, probably worse amps the way that they were built, and as far as being in for repair and stuff, they were neat. The concept of them was neat, but unfortunately, out of everything from custom that they had, that was probably the ones that they had the more problems with out of everything, and that's why you don't see too much of them anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but they're pretty. But I've always wanted a Bad Cat, man. I've seen those things. I love it how the eyes light up on it and all that. I think that is just rocking. What about Randall? What's your thought on Randall amps?
Randall amps are great amps too for the money. I mean, to me, I always kind of looked at a Randall amp as maybe kind of like the Epiphone of a Marshall.
Yeah,
like,
so
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like like you had like Marshall and to me a Randall. That was just sort of my outtake
let's
on
talk
them.
about a sore subject for you here. Let's talk about PV.
PV for a long time used to be really, really great. They treated their customers well. I mean, there for a minute, all you had to do was just give them a call. They would look up the part for you. You gave them a credit card number, and boom, within a couple of days, it was there. And I don't understand. Maybe it was greed. Maybe it was just poor way of running the factory. But I had even remembered watching them. They had actually, a guy had did a cover of them on Undercover Boss one day. And they had actually, this guy wound up was going to try to find another job and get better money because PV wouldn't pay him. And then, of course, what was funny, the PV wound up just to making themselves look good on Undercover Boss, wound up paying this guy and stuff what he needed, and then like 3 or 4 weeks later wound up laying him off, and then so of course that other job that he went for was taken, and so ever since then I've kind of
PV just went bankrupt too here just a little bit ago.
What about PV quality? In let's talk about like when I first met Richard Poole on here is my father-in-law, by the way, Justin.
Oh, okay.
And when I first
nice to meet you, Richard.
Yeah. When I first met Richard, he had a PV 5150.
Oh, yeah, the Van Halen. Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on like PV's quality back in the day?
PV's quality back in the day was really, really good. I mean, just even the way that you could get parts, the way that you could work on even the old Black Widow speakers. I mean, if they started getting distorted, you could take the magnet off of them, put a piece of tape in there and clean them out, put it back on there, and it was good as new. If the speaker blown, you could get a new speaker basket, put it on the Black Widow, and go. If you needed coils, resistors, I mean, at one point, I mean, and that was what really kept PV going, and a lot of the times that's what you've seen was a lot of PV.
Yeah.
Because they were user-friendly, stuff was easy to get for them.
Stuff.
And now it's just like, what happened? It's just like they turned their back on the people that was really, keeping them up and going.
Yeah.
I mean, like the PV Maces, you remember those things? Those were god awful.
Yeah. I've still got an old PV Combo 300 bass amp that's still going to this day.
Yeah, so I had a PV Mace someone wanted me to buy. I mean, it had some modifications done to it, and it sounded god awful. And I was just like, I just played it, and I was like, man, this thing just sounds so muddy, so distorted, so nasty sounding. I was like, there's no way that this thing can be brought back to sounding decent.
Well, now PV2 has outsourced a lot of their stuff too, and it's so sad because I could remember that back in the day, PV was like an American icon. PV was like the Marshall of Britain. PV at one point was just an American icon, and now sadly it's really went by the wayside, and it's really a shame because at one time that was a really wonderful company.
You're hearing the hard spitting fact troops here on the FretJob. I mean, we're laying it down.
Well, why not? Why BS people? I mean, we lay it out, we put it out there and stuff. I mean,
that's why we don't take PVMs. We've had 2 PVMs that have came in here
and can't get parts for them.
Can't get parts for them. They're proprietary parts. So that means that not anything's going to work on it. And that's the thing. Like, can't get it, can't figure it out, can't get boards. Like,
or what you can get's coming off of a slow boat from China. So it's just
slow boat from China. Or like we got was it a Chinese PV amp or USA? That Valve King.
Valve King, I suspect that may have been a USA one, but it was still just
a cheap USA one.
Yeah,
it was not a very big one.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't get parts for it. Couldn't find the board. Board was bad. It was just no bueno, no good.
So I'll tell you an obscure amp that a friend of mine had. It's kind of in pieces now, but
Is it Robbie?
what about Johnson amplifiers?
Johnson amplifiers. I always called those basically the pawn shop amps because you see a lot of pawn shops and stuff have like Johnson guitars. And Johnson amps. And I mean for somebody with for somebody
no,
with
this I'm talking about it. This is an expensive amp. This is not a cheap amp. This was like a $2,000 combo amp.
Well, when you say
made
Johnson,
by a company called Johnson.
Yeah, well, you say Johnson. Yeah, that's what that kind of puts me in the mind of. I'm not exactly for sure if there were a better version of that.
I think it's a different company. I've never seen another one.
Yeah,
I
have.
This was
you remember
similar
the
to
Johnson
like
acoustic guitars?
Yeah, this is not related to
Yeah,
that.
well, they made their own amplifiers that had Johnson on them, too, so that's where we're coming from.
I want to ask him about that because I'm sure an amp guy like you would be interested to know really what that is. I'm going to ask him what that is and see
and that very well could have been something that maybe Johnson had bought from. There is actually amps and stuff that they would buy, or an amp design that they would buy.
Yeah.
And then would actually have their name put on it.
This one's got like the greenback Celestian speakers in it.
Oh, that's probably a mod then.
So
let's usually greenbacks. I mean, now the new Marshalls are coming out with them now. But the greenbacks, I have not seen too many of them out there. And usually a greenback anymore, especially on something older, is more of a mod.
Okay.
Yeah, the greenbacks they were starting to make them out of hemp.
Wow.
Yeah, they were using industrial hemp and stuff to make those out. Yeah, believe it or not. And that's why they called them greenbacks, because they were made.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
I got you.
So I've got here's the deal today. I've got a custom cabinet with vintage Celestian 60s in it, with a Fender Mustang hat for $400 out the door. And then for $1,600, I've also got the ever fabulous door rectifier if anybody wants to buy it, because nobody's bid on it yet.
Yeah, that's a nice amp, man. It's just you got to be a dedicated guy to spend that kind of money on a.
And Richard says the
5150
was bad to the bone on heavy stuff. But
they were, and what was really bad about that, they actually had to change the model number of that. I think it's like a 48 something or 4840 or something. They wound up having
because
to change
of EVH.
That. Yeah, because Eddie Van Halen's passing or something. The contract had ended or something. He
made his own amps. The EVH.
Yeah.
And the EVH guitars, the Wolfgang, or was it Wolfgang?
Yeah.
Like
yeah. And they wound up, and it's basically it's the same amp, but they just had to change the model number on it. So I think it's like a 4840 or something to that effect. But it's the same amp as the 5150, same circuitry and stuff, but they had to change the model number and stuff just due to some kind of copyright issue or some kind of contract issue with
I mentioned that Gens-Benz amp that I used to have a little bit ago. You know anything about the Gens-Benz company?
I've heard bits and pieces. It's a very rare piece. I don't see too many of them.
I think Fender bought them, maybe.
Yeah. And that's a good thing, too. There's some amps that you don't hear of and stuff that you don't see in a shop, and that's a good thing. It's kind of like the Maytag repairman. You may be a repair person for that type of company, and you're just sitting in here in the shop not doing nothing because hardly any of them come back.
Yeah.
So
that's it. So, I like the one I had. It would switch from 30 watts to 60 watts. It was called a Pinto Triode.
Oh yeah, and a lot of your amps now will do that too. That you've got a power switch on the back to where, like, if you're just playing something small, you can run it at half power, or you can flip the switch on the back if you're playing a larger venue and have more power coming to it. So
I had no business even having it, man. I never played electric guitar. I mean, I thought it was cool though.
Some acoustic electrics actually sound good through some electric guitars. Line 6, you were talking about them earlier. The Spider 5. Has actually got 2 smaller speakers in it that you can turn on and use for an acoustic amp.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, or you can turn them off and use the 212s for electric, just whatever your preference.
It's good
is.
Somebody like you knows when that'll work. I'll tell you what I did. Like, I play at church sometimes, and a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I'm going to try something different. I always played into a mic like we were talking about a little bit ago.
Yeah.
Just had a regular SM57 there or whatever. But I decided, our bass player at church, he's got a direct out on his Ampeg combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work out real great for me. I plugged my Martin into that thing, and it worked, but it'll never happen again.
Yeah, it probably maybe didn't emphasize your highs or a little bit or your mids as well.
Yeah, it
as
was real rumbly, man.
Yeah.
It was a freaking bass amp.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be rumbly.
And then, of course, now Ampeg, believe it or not, I mean, were more renowned and stuff for their bass amps. They had a couple of nice guitar amps. And I still use that old Gemini 1 if I'm out playing jazz because it's just got that nice, clean,
got the sound for it,
vintage kind of sound for it. And then of course, I mean, you can plug a pedal and stuff into it, but it doesn't sound the same. It's not.
I've been using a direct box since then, and I'm liking that.
Yeah, direct boxes are great, and so they kind of filter out a lot of the stuff because I mean, again, you're not sending an electric guitar signal. You're sending an amplified microphone signal. So, you're going to get clip in your sound. You're going to get, it's like plugging a microphone into a guitar amp.
Yeah.
So it's, so you're just getting but direct boxes for that really helps a lot on cutting a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it worked really well for me. And it was just a cheap one, man. It was like a Behringer direct box, but it worked fine.
You don't need nothing too elaborate for that. I mean, unless you're playing some crazy big venue to where you're going to have to amplify the heck out of it and stuff. You don't need anything.
Yeah, it's dead silent in a church when you're playing.
Yeah. What you think of Dr. Z amps?
Dr. Z?
Yeah, we'll talk about Brad Paisley a little bit. Dr. Z.
Brad Paisley and Dr. Z. Now I haven't followed Brad Paisley in a while.
Well, what about Dr. Z though? I know you know about them.
I've heard bits and pieces of them. I have never seen or actually worked with one of them in person.
That's one of them ones that never comes back.
Right. Again, it's one of those ones you hardly ever see.
Because they're so good quality made.
Yeah, a lot of the quality and stuff. It's just
I'll
one of
give
those.
a little plug to my buddy Montgomery Amp Company. He makes amps out of I think Georgetown, Winchester. He's a pretty cool guy. That's a little plug. So if you're watching this or seeing this, this is my little plug to you. But this is a legit funny story, and I joke with Jonathan about this a lot and say with Jonathan, but this is like sort of a legit funny but serious story. So we're at a gig one time, and we're playing. Well, this guy here is older than dirt. I wouldn't say older than dirt, but he has a flip phone. Well, he forgets to bring a tuner, I guess. I don't know what, but I watched this little guy. He was sitting over on the side of a stage with a glass pitch pipe, and he's trying to tune his guitar. Okay, and I'm sure you know where this is going.
Yeah.
And he's sitting over there with the glass pitch pipe trying to tune his guitar, and he's struggling, but he's trying to tune with his glass pitch pipe. Well, about a couple minutes later, all of a sudden, I just hear glass shatter all over the place, and I hear, "Son of a buck!" Oh, he didn't say buck. And I hear screaming and cussing at the top of his lungs. And he was holding that pitch pipe and slipped and dropped and it broke. And he didn't have no way to tune his guitar.
Oh,
Luckily,
man.
somebody else there had a tuner, a snark. It's just funny. You don't typically see somebody on the side of a stage with a pitch pipe anymore.
Yeah, or you hardly ever see too many people actually tuning by ear anymore. Everybody's gotten spoiled to tuners and stuff too. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like everybody using calculators. A long time ago, everybody did math problems in their head. Now you got a calculator on your watch.
Yeah.
You got a calculator
And I'm
on your
guilty.
phone.
I use a tuner a lot. I mean,
I do
I'm
too.
guilty.
I mean, why not? It's a convenience thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've seen people sit here for 30 minutes just bing, 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 bing.
Yeah.
And it's just that it's a great thing with a tuner. It's convenience, but it's just that's a lost art anymore too. Somebody that can actually just sit here and tune one by ear.
And
the accuracy's not the same. I mean, accuracy's not the same between different tuners, man. I mean, I've got a Pano tuner on my phone. I use it, and if I've got a dead battery or something, and then I'll turn around and clip one of my clip-on tuners on, and I'll notice that one of them's way lower than the other one.
Well, it's just even with people tuning by ear, I think the statistics are, I think it's like 1 in every 250 people actually have what's called perfect pitch.
Yeah.
To where they can sit here and listen.
Yeah, it's
to
rare.
Let's just talk about this, why can't guitar players change a light bulb? Because there'd be too many people to tell them how to do it differently.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing with that. I mean, you could a guitar or being a musician in a way is almost a religion in itself. It's like the Bible. You could read the Bible and study it for 2 lifetimes and still not know everything there is to know about it.
Yeah.
Or what's in it the same way with music. I mean, you can play a guitar or a piano for 4 lifetimes and still be learning. So that's why they always said vampires were the best musicians, because they've outlived everybody and they've been playing longer than everybody.
Yeah. And if you quit learning, then you don't love it as much as you say you do, you know.
And then, of course, too, you run up across blocks and stuff. They call it the musician's block. I could remember when I first started playing, and when it came to, like, learning bar chords, I never understood them. And then finally one day it just came to me. Yeah, and that's just and you run into those things as you go along.
Then you got to get your dexterity together to be able to execute them.
And then you start getting into, especially too, you're playing jazz, you start getting into seventh chords, and then maybe some augmented and diminished chords, and trying to figure out,
You can go.
So
it's endless how far you can go with it.
Richard said, I learned by ear all my life until recently. Till John taught me.
He tuned by ear. Yeah, he tuned by ear.
Yeah. And it's,
he did.
That's like deer hunting anymore. It's like a dying art. Not too many people can do that anymore. I'm sure there's people that still can, but there's, I knew people that could just sit right there and just do it by ear in just a couple of minutes, and some people it may take them 25 or 30 minutes.
I've noticed most people that can and do tune by ear, they have this tick and if they're playing different songs, sitting there just jamming or whatever, they will really pay attention to that high E string, man, and they notice intonation issues in a guitar really quick.
As a luthier, and I'll tell you this, and this is something that really irks me. If I go out and I listen, like a couple weeks ago, I went and heard a band, and the lead guitar player, his guitar was not in tune. And this was an all-male band, and the lead guitar player, I didn't go to listen to music. I went to eat, and the band was playing. And literally, my friend was like, "Why is your face sour?" It's like, because the guy he wouldn't tune it, and it was obviously out of tune. He's like, "Well, I can't." But I could tell that it was out of tune, and then I could tell that it was not intonated, and it's just like driving me nuts.
Well, it kills me too, because I've played with bands, I've toured with a band, I've played with bands, I've done all kinds of different stuff. And somebody posted a meme on Facebook, which really reminded me a lot of this, and that's why I hardly don't like going to live shows anymore. It showed that there's a football player sitting in the stands, all geared up and ready to go, and the football game's going here, and it's like kind of like how I feel. It's just like, here I am geared up and ready to go, and I used to do this, and now it's like, where I had spent so much time doing this, I can listen to a live band and stuff, and I'm like, okay, bass player's out, or you guys ain't in the pocket or anything. And
it's like a difference. I'm spoiled. I get to listen to Brad Harden and his band, and they're just on top of everything. And then I get to listen to these guys like energy. Like, here's something that bothers the heck out of me. It's like when you just stand still the whole time in your band, don't have no energy, man. Like, come on, put on a show. When I go see like Brad and his band, they're jumping up and down. They're like, and they're doing it, and they're in time, and they're keeping good, and they're like moving around. They're getting the crowd pumped up. They're playing. I see this guy the other day. He was just standing there, and they were doing Mustang Sally, and he was Mustang Sally.
That put me in the mind of an old Patti LaBelle concert that I'd watched a long time ago. And of course, she had this short little white saxophone player. There's everybody else thumping around that stage. Here's a saxophone player. Yeah, I got you. Come on. What you got? Just sitting there like this. What you got? But I mean, you can look at musicians when you go out and play, and you can tell the difference between like the actual musicians and then just the weekend musicians.
Yeah.
You go out here, you hear, Give Me 3 Steps or Leonard Skinner and all that stuff.
You can tell who likes it, and you can tell who lives it.
You can tell who likes doing it. You can tell who's trying to do it just to maybe pick up chicks or get a little extra money, and you can tell who's actually passionate about it and who's really into it.
But I just always, like he said, I thought it was funny. Is like, I did. Like, this guy sitting here, and he's like, Mustang Sally, and he's not moving. It's like he's dead on stage.
Kind of puts him on to Randy Travis. He always looked like he was having a meltdown when he was going to sing, like, I'm gonna lose you forever. It looked like he was about to blow a gasket or something, And then, of course, another favorite one, too, was like watching Joe Cocker, like in Woodstock. He looked like he was about ready to have a seizure. Like, what would you do?
Yes, that was always funny. Another funny thing I like to laugh about or talk about is like I seen this one band, and they're doing what was the song? Oh, they were doing Eric Church record year. I know you like Eric Church.
Yeah, I like that.
And they were doing record year, and the lead singer was just standing there. Quarter notes and hangs half time, and he was just like not even moving.
Another one
and he was monotone when he sung
another
it.
one I'd seen too, and I mean, this lady was very beautiful, had a very beautiful voice, and it just like she just disappeared too was Colby Calais. And sometimes when she would sing, she looked like she was having a little too much fun with the microphone,
That's
you know?
She looks like she got a little experience doing
Yeah,
other things
it
off.
looked like she was
I
having.
remember every
and
time I
same,
think
same way
about
with
her.
John Mayer, you know, he would just, you know, it just looked like he would have a little too much fun with that microphone or something.
My toes and it hits with the nose.
Every time I think of her, I think of Count Me In.
Oh,
She
yeah.
always, that's what it says at the beginning of her tune.
Count me in.
Can you count me in? You know, just
Yeah.
I'm all bubbly.
yeah. I mean, but yeah, it's
We
just
have
it's
too much fun. On
yeah, and it's fun. Well, you know, I was watching the thing and stuff earlier, and just you know, just a good little bit of music history. There was a gentleman with a band, and he was having some trouble with his old lady, and he was out on the road and stuff. And they were on their way, sitting out there, and within about 15 minutes, he was sitting there farting around and stuff on his guitar, and within 15 minutes, he came out with probably one of the best rock and roll songs of all times.
What was it?
The lyrics go, "If I leave here tomorrow, would you still
Oh,
remember
yeah.
me?" Freebird. That song was written in 15 minutes. And
Yeah, a lot
it's
of the great
amazing.
songs
Just
were.
it's
Hey,
amazing.
Let's just talk about this. Go Skinner. And fresh strings a must for correcting. Yeah, not fresh strings are a must to an extent, Richard. But the thing is like it's like you got these guys. Well, I've watched a guy on YouTube do a setup, so I'm gonna do a setup for my show. I'm gonna do my own home setup. And, you know, it's just, you know, they're not experienced enough. Intonation's a little loud, and it's just not where they thought it was going to be. I'll tell you one that I've seen
But
a
the
lot of.
intonation I've learned from you and from your colleague on the internet that we both watch together.
Oh, I watched him the other night. I spent like
You know, I've learned that your intonation, it's there from the moment the guitar is built. And there's no changing that without major alterations on an acoustic.
Yeah, so, like, let me talk about this. Like, I'll throw out, he's one of my idols. I love Jerry Rosa Stringworks. I probably watch him all the time. Like, I'll sit in my bed, like, when I get home at night, and I'll watch him for, like, an hour. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Like,
He's slick, man.
He is. He's good. I like him, and he's one of my inspirations why I'm here today is because of him. So he means a lot to me. And, yeah, thank you. It's been a great show.
Yeah, it has been a great show. I've enjoyed this. You were talking about inspirations and stuff. I could remember, and this, of course, you know, I'm a little bit older and stuff. I remember, believe it or not, who probably inspired me to play guitar when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and this sounds funnier than hell, but it had to have been Rick Springfield. You know, Jesse's Girl. When I heard that back in the 80s, I was just like, yeah, you know, I had to do that.
This is what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you know, being 7 and 8 years old back in the 80s when that first come out and everything, I was like, oh, man, this is bad.
Who inspires you, Johnny?
Who inspires me?
Yeah, we're talking about inspiration. He gave his.
Well, that was being like, you know, 7 or 8 years old. I've got a lot of influences now, but that was
Actually,
that
I
was
can-
what
I
really
was
had
more
gotten me
inspired
into-
by the people around me. You
What
know what I
about
mean?
that
Than I
ukulele
was
guy?
famous people.
What about that? You
Yeah,
mentioned
to
that
get
a
into
lot.
ukulele, I mean, when I got into ukulele, the Jake Shimabukuro, man, I heard him do one, While My Guitar Gently Weeps on ukulele, and that got me playing uke. But just guitar in general, my uncle, he had guitars around when I was a kid, and then he had some friends that came, or one friend in particular that came over, and he had an electric Strat copy that was made by Martin called a Stinger.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to play around on that a little bit when I was a kid, and that got me to want to order the Harmony out of JCPenney catalog, and then the rest was history.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I could remember growing up, and my grandfather and his brothers would all get together and play music, and I cut my teeth on a lot of that old. I lost my car on the road, and I'm crying my heart out over you.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
you know?
sure. So I'll mention I am flying out of here. So I'll mention this. I'm Brandon,
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Justin. I'm the guitar doctor.
the amp doctor.
Or the amp doctor, my bad. He's
Yeah,
the
so-
guitar doctor. I'm
so,
the amp doctor. Well, it seems like I'm working on guitars here too sometimes too. But yeah,
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
y'all check out Frazzell Guitar. Go out there, buy something, have something worked on. Bring that thing you've had in the closet that's not been used forever, and let
The
if it's an amp,
guitar.
let Justin work on it. If it's a guitar, let Brandon work on it. Y'all have a great week.
yeah, bring us your broken toys.
There you go.
Yeah, we work on it. Yeah, bring us your broken toys and we'll fix it. So
Man.
y'all have a great week. Thanks for watching the Fret Job.
Thank you
and we're
guys
gonna
for having
sign
me.
out.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here, Justin.